Howdy folks, I am your Princess ChaoticAyana, you are all beautiful, and today we are going to take a look at Ratchet and Clank A Rift Apart. It is the first PS5 game I have done for the channel. I am very excited. Let's jump straight in. After that sort of retelling of the original story, or was it really supposed to be a soft reboot, I'm not sure, on the PS4, we seem to have gone back to having all of the previous games in continuity. It's a move that should come across as safe, but to a new audience, I suppose it could feel pretty jarring. Yeah, if you've seen one of my reviews at this point, you kind of know the drill. Safe but jarring is very much going to be our theme here. I will say I very much enjoy Rift Apart, it just feels a bit like a missed opportunity. We're going to start off by taking a quick moment to talk about the good, and there's a lot of it in Rift Apart. Like all of the Ratchet and Clank games before it, the platforming and shooting are extremely well done, and the minute-to-minute game is just fun to play. Much like the soft reboot I was just talking about, the game is absolutely gorgeous, and like its predecessor, it has these really busy environments and these backgrounds, and there's all the chaos of so many enemies on screen at once. It's every bit as entertaining as it should be. Also, it's not what we come to these games for, but it's fairly well written. I find the humour in Ratchet and Clank games is usually more sort of pithy than actually funny, but when Dr. Nefarious is on screen and chewing the scenery, there's a lot to love there. I also find the new character Rivet is made interesting and appealing both in her script and in her performance, when she could have just been a carbon copy of Ratchet. If her voice sounds familiar, by the way, it's Jennifer Hale. She played Femshep in Mass Effect. The sort of awkward conversation between her and Ratchet when the two of them meet in person for the first time is probably the game's high point for me. Finally, as they are the selling point of the game, indeed it's in the title, the rifts are really impressive from a technological perspective. But let's talk about them in more detail. Like I just said, the rifts are very technologically impressive, but they are being hailed by a lot of people as the reason to own a PS5, and I think I might be missing something here. I will start off by saying my problem is not the rifts themselves, it's that the game doesn't actually do anything that's all that creative with them. There are these smaller ones that you can use to alter your position rapidly in combat, and for some of the platforming. But the problem there is the platforming uses of them are very linear, and in combat they're just generally not the best solution. There's like a half-second delay while activating them, and on higher difficulties you're gonna take damage because you have to stand still. Then there are the bigger static rifts that let you travel between dimensions, and this is really only used for picking up armor upgrades, maybe outside of a couple of scripted sequences. The whole thing feels like it could have been used for much more than it actually is. When it comes to traversing levels, for example, you're still going back to your ship, selecting a planet, flying there, etc, etc. We're also in the same dimension for almost all of the game and just moving between planets. It is such a letdown for what this system could have been. Finally on the rift topic, and it's a very slight tangent, but a lot of reviewers seem to be saying that the rifts have eliminated loading screens, which makes me wonder what they believe is happening every time a character gets flung at the screen like this. Okay, it's not the doors in Resident Evil, but I know a loading gap when I see one. So sure, the rifts are fun, but a bit of a missed opportunity. What about the rest of the game? Well, one of my major disappointments with it, honestly, is that it's kind of just more Ratchet and Clank. Now, to be clear, as I have already said, I love Ratchet and Clank games and their gameplay, but that doesn't excuse when something new is brought into the series and it turns out to be a reskin of something that was already there. For example, I praise Rivet's writing and acting because she is not just a female Ratchet. That is entirely true, but gameplay-wise she's completely identical. They don't even have separate weapons or inventories. She looks different, that's it. The same thing goes for Kit, the other robot. Well written, good backstory, but gameplay-wise she's identical to Clank. Would it really have killed them to give either character at least a different upgrade or two? I mean, we never get to choose which one we're playing anyway, so that's not a concern. There's no need for them to be identical, and hell, it would have been a great chance to just change up the gameplay a little bit. Hell, Kit doesn't even get the puzzle levels that Clank gets. There is this cool little robot you get to play as called Glitch, but you get to do it like 3 times at most. And again, there's nothing inherently bad about all of this because there's nothing bad about Ratchet and Clank gameplay, but it's a shame more effort wasn't made to add something unique here. Now I am leaving this particular gripe to last because I kind of like my gripes to go in order of how much fact there is to support them, and this one is purely opinion based. That said, the weapons in Rift Apart are a bit uninspired, aren't they? First off, as the segment card suggested, what's up with no Mr. Zircon? Gods, I adore him. It's like circa 1980 Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone had a robot baby. And yeah, I know, alternate universe, he's all peaceful here, but Zircon Jr. isn't, can't he come with me? And sure, we have the Glove of Doom, we have Mr. Fungi, but they're very much not the same. The other weapons too are just generally not as much fun as their predecessors were. I like how they work, the use of the haptic feedback on the triggers for aiming and throwing, like grenades, shorter distances, that kind of thing, that's wonderful. And sure, the topiary grenades and the pixelator both work well and are fun, but they're just not as amusing as the sheepinator or the discotron. What with having so many more enemies on screen this time around because of the PS5, I would have loved to be able to make them dance for my amusement. Unlike the other visuals in-game, there just isn't a single weapon in the main group that makes me think, wow, this is next gen, and there's nothing here I would use purely for its amusement over its functionality. Plus, I know I already said this, but no Mr. Zircon, really? You know what, it probably sounds like I'm being really harsh on a Rift Apart, and yeah, maybe I am, but it's not about the game itself as much as the critical feedback to a certain extent. I have seen this game getting 9s out of 10, I've seen it being called the reason to own a PS5, and, well, at the end of the day, it's just more Ratchet and Clank. Now, like I said up front, that's good. I like Ratchet and Clank, the game is great. If I gave scores, I'd probably say it's great, and you should probably go buy it. But it's not going to change the industry. It's really not the reason to own a PS5. It's just the reason to own one right now. When it comes to the end of this generation, nobody's going to be talking about this. And that is my review for this week, folks. Kind of a shorter one, I know. The next couple of weeks, I am going to be off on vacation, so you will have to wait for your content from me or go and watch some older videos. It's always nice to see the views going up. I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Until then, I have been your Princess ChaoticAyana. You are all beautiful. Peace. I'm out.